Hello, I have a new application in the iOS App Store. It's called Decide What to Eat. I wrote it for two very specific reasons. One of them is to keep up to date with my skills of developing iOS applications, and the other one is to scratch an itch for my wife and I to help us decide what to eat for the upcoming week. So we close the About, and we close the help screen that's available on every view. This application is not a recipe transcription application. There are other great applications using AI to scan in your recipe books and put them in that application's proprietary format. This app is not an inventory of your pantry. There are other applications to do that as well. The sole focus of this application is to make it easy for you to sit down at the beginning of your week to say, okay, this is what we want to make in the next week, kind of day by day. And let's start talking about recipes. The primary view in this application is your recipes list. Now, the recipes is a very open-ended concept because we have going out, we have leftovers, we have potluck, we have takeout, and then we have the recipes that you add yourself, which can have very specific information that you want for that recipe. Now, every recipe can be as simple as, let's say you want to add pizza. And that's it. That is the only information that you need to add in order to make a decision. But every recipe can also be expanded to include photos, a name, a URL, and page numbers from your recipe book. So let's say I got this cast iron recipe out of a book. So I'll call it My Great Recipes. We already have a photo. Let's say it's on page 1 through 2. And let's say I don't feel like tapping in anything more specific than that. And then now this recipe has the photo, it has a link, and it has page numbers. And we could add more of these. So if you have more pages, so you can even take pictures of the recipe itself. So we add, let's say we just want to add another image. So we go over here. Yep, we know. Let's crop it how we want it, and done. So now our recipe has multiple images. We can also add tags, and you can add and remove and change any tags that you want. You can give it an effort level. You can say, this recipe is more of a dinner kind of meal. It's the primary dinner meal. You can give an estimated duration, and you could also rate it. All of this is here, so when you're over here doing a search on what you want to make for the next week, you can say, okay, give me anything that has the letter C in it that is 2 stars at least. And here this lets you narrow down what you want. And if you can't even decide between a cast iron sirloin or corn on the cob, you can hit the random button. And this is how you enter in information for your recipes and select an item. One of the features of this application is to export all of the information you've collected from a recipe to share with friends. So let's say you've cooked something wonderful and your friends want to know the information about that recipe. All you have to do is select it. So let's select, like cast iron skillet. You hit the share button and it will generate a PDF document that has all of your information that you've entered, the pictures, the titles, even the URLs. It's all there. So you can just share it with them. Once you have enough information entered into the system to start making decisions, the next step is to actually plan out your week. So we have the calendar view. And so let's say on Friday the 18th, these are the items that you want to cook. So we have a cast iron skillet, corn on the cob, and salad. So how do you do that? So you're back at the recipe, and the application has a concept of the current day. We click the Add to Calendar button. We want to add to, let's say we are the 21st, and for dinner is the main dish. And let's say when we decide to actually cook and plate this thing, we may need to make a note of use large pan. Okay, so you can add notes, and at this point, if we go into our calendar, now we have our actual planned out week. Now, how you define your week is you have your selected day, and then you can be like, well, I'm only going to plan out, 4 days in advance. So you select the 4 days, and then it will highlight those 4 days. So you're like, okay, these are the days I want to plan. But you always add recipes. So let's say we want to also have pizza that day because we have a picky kid. So we add to the calendar. We're already on the 21st. It's for dinner, and then we're good. And then we go back to calendar, and there it is. And so these keep getting added. Now, a couple of the features here, you can double tap on that to get back to the recipe. And we jump back to our calendar. If you click, you can change any one of these. So let's say you want to change the notes or actually change the day. You can do that. So you can edit the actual plating. We also have a share button that will give a markdown listing of all of the things that you have planned for the day specified. It's also a common thing where you're like, okay, wait, dang, something just came up. We have to shift everything down a day. So we have this button, basically, that shifts everything down. Boom. So now it's the 22nd. So let's say something came up on the 21st. You can't do the plan. So instead of having to re-enter all the information, you can just shift everything down. Because the goal here is to make it easy to make the decisions and maintain your decisions. Another feature of this application is the shopping trip. So if we go back to our recipe, and this is all optional, if you go to cast iron and we click on our ingredients list, it takes dry rub and steak. Let's say we want to add the ingredient of, let's say we like to make it with green peppers. So we'll call it green peppers. And we add it. So now we have a new ingredient. Now, this is the list of all of the products that the application knows about, and it gets the list of products from the ingredients. So we don't have a central repository of every product. No, it just says whatever you've entered in for your recipes, here's the complete list. So we close that, and we're back down to the ingredients for cast iron. And then we go back into our calendar, and we have this concept of shopping list. Now, shopping list, you only have one. Previous shopping lists are not saved. This is very much of a on the fly. This is what we need. So if we go over here, and since we've added a new ingredient, we regenerate, and there it is, dry rub, green peppers, and steak for this day. Now, if we set our day back to this day, where we had, and let's actually make it 7 days. So we include all of these things, and we want to do a shopping trip. We replace the current shopping trip to this, and this is now everything that we need. It finds duplicates. If you have special notes, we also include those just so you can have a checkbox to confirm every one of these. And then this too can be shared. So you can text yourself your recipe list, or text it to your kid who's going to go out and do the shopping. So you can create a very quick shopping list of what you've planned, assuming you've entered in the ingredients. Another feature of this application is the widget. So we exit out of the application and we go to our widget. And we go to our widget. And we go to our widget. And there it is. This small version of the widget shows you essentially your next meal, which is dinner, and it's cast iron sirloin. Now, you can modify this widget, so let's go to the large version, and this will show you if you have several time frames scheduled out throughout the day and the individual items. Another thing that you can do, if we say edit widget, is you can select on the large ones whether we do meals or days. So if we select day and get out of there, now it will show you the main dish for every meal on for like 3 or 4 days beginning on your day. So this allows you to have a quick snapshot of your planned meals. The application uses Apple's technology called CloudKit, which means if you have this application installed on multiple Apple devices, your iPad and your iPhone, as long as they're all authenticated with the same person, the information will be transferred between the devices. So you can manage your recipes on your iPad, and while you're shopping, access the shopping list. My wife and I have been using this application for a couple weeks, and we're finding it very useful, particularly keeping the calendar screen open, such as this. So we walk down in the kitchen and we immediately know what's planned for the day. So thank you for your time, and I will make another video where I actually talk about the technology that I've used to write this. So thank you.